Let's bring in Congressman Pat Fallon. He's from Texas's 4th Congressional District, and he's a member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, good to have you with us, sir.
Vince, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Congressman. I will say that I thought that this was a clever move on the part of the Biden attorneys. Like, oh, we have nothing to hide. We want to testify publicly. But just take us through what is normal here. And if Hunter Biden wanted to set the terms of his testimony, couldn't he have just come in voluntarily in the first place?
Yes, absolutely. He had to be subpoenaed. So I don't think that they have any intention. They certainly don't have a desire to testify. Let's talk about let's use the word Vince, hypocrite. Let's talk about hypocrite. The ranking member of the Oversight Committee is the distinguished gentleman from Maryland, Jamie Raskin. Jamie Raskin is calling Republicans hypocrites because he's saying we've been crowing for a year about how we want him to testify, and yet here he is, and we don't want him to testify publicly. That is patently false. The way the process works is you get a private closed-door deposition first, and then the public testimony will follow weeks or months thereafter. Just like when Jamie Raskin and his Democratic colleagues wanted to bring Donald Trump in and his conservative American allies. They wanted them. Did they want them to testify publicly? No, they wanted to bring them in for a closed-door deposition first.
Right.
So if Mr. Raskin wants to find a hypocrite, he can find a mirror.
Well, look, the January 6th committee was entirely behind closed doors depositions with selective leaks. We didn't have public testimony from these people.
Touche, my friend. That's why you're a great American. You deal in truth and reality.
And it's
conjecture.
Yeah, it's total. Obviously, it's total hypocrisy as usual for these lefties. And by the way, Congressman, it's a little hard to hear you. So if you're on speakerphone, it might be better to talk on the handset. But I want to hear every word. But what we have here is Hunter Biden. They claim that they want to testify publicly. Now, my reaction to that, upon hearing that, was that he's got a weak case. If he doesn't think he can do this behind closed doors in a deposition format, what he's really hoping for is that your 21 Democrat colleagues will all act as his defense attorneys in a public hearing. That's what he wants very desperately. You think?
There's no doubt about it, because I got lots of questions I'd like to ask Hunter. Would you like me to go through some? I mean, I'd like to know why he made $24 million. How you hearing me, by the way, Vince? Is this better?
It's a little difficult, but we hear you. We hear the words.
Okay. So why the $24 million? Were from foreign corrupt politicians and oligarchs and such. What did you do for that? What goods did you provide, or what services did you render? Why did Yelena Baturina, who was married to a Russian oligarch that the U.S. ambassador under Obama said was the poster child of corruption, why did she give you $3.3 million and then show up for dinner a few months later with you and your dad when he was sitting vice president? Interestingly enough, she also was not sanctioned publicly by the Biden administration. What about Kenaz Razhikev, who gave you $142,300? He's from Kazakhstan. He's the right arm of Karim Mazamiev, who's currently in jail. He gave you $142,300 and you bought a Porsche the next day in New Jersey for $142,300. Vadim Pazarski, who was the CFO of Burisma, who paid you $3.5 million, he also had dinner with your dad while he was sitting vice president. Are these just coincidences, or is it they pay you as the bag man and then you get access to your dad? Just
right.
Amongst a lot of other things I'd like to ask.
Well, in case you run into any lefty who says, well, there's no evidence of Biden committing any wrongdoing, which I did television this morning. I ran into somebody who said explicitly that. And, of course, I was like, are you kidding me? And I started listing off all this evidence, and it was something else. But that's a side story. But here's the thing, Congressman. I heard the speaker, Mike Johnson, lay this out today. The lies. There's no debate that Joe Biden has lied endlessly about his knowledge of the money that's been flowing into his family. That's an open and shut case, isn't it?
It is. He said at first that I have no knowledge of my son's business dealings. I've never, and then they said, what? And then when it was found that he actually met with people that his son did business with, because he also claimed that he never met anybody. So clearly he knew what his son was doing, and clearly he met with his son's business associates. And then to sit there and now we know that his son took in and his brother took in $24 million, and he wants us to believe that he didn't know what they were up to, and that his brother gets a $200,000 wire from a company AmeriCorps, and then the same day he gives his brother Joe Biden $200,000 and said it was a loan repayment.
Yeah. So there's a lot of evidence here. So when it comes to Hunter Biden's testimony, will he actually, I guess, under the penalty of being held in contempt of Congress, will he be forced to give a deposition behind closed doors? Oh, the phone call collapsed? All right. Well, let's hope as we reconnect that the signal's even better because, like I said to the congressman, it was a little difficult to hear him, and we want to get an update here on what the heck is going on with this Hunter Biden news. Again, a very live story right now because Hunter Biden's lawyers came out yesterday, and they're like, we want to testify publicly. And I'm like, come on. Please. Just please. Because behind closed doors, it's a little different, these depositions, the way they're conducted. And Congressman Pat Fallon, you're back with us now, sir.
I'm back. Yes, sir.
Oh, you sound great, too. So thank you for that. Hey, so let's talk about the difference between a deposition and a public hearing. And I don't mean any disrespect to members of Congress here, but the public hearings are usually grandstanding occasions. We have so many speeches from both sides of the aisle and not enough fact-finding typically. Yeah. Whereas a deposition, correct me if I'm wrong, but normally it's not just members of Congress, but instead some of their expert aides who contribute questions and really drill down to get some answers, right?
No, it's exactly it. It's the subject matter experts. It's the thing. These staff members are so good when you're talking about the congressional committees. That's what we pay them to do. That as members of Congress, we are, for lack of a better phrase, jacks of all trades and almost masters of very few. I don't want to say masters of none, but very few. These folks have specificity in these particular realms. And for instance, we have several oversight committee staff members who have solely been focused on Biden corruption. And so they're the best ones to ask questions. And they do it, as you said, more in a from a fact-finding angle rather than to create, theatrical gotcha moments.
Yes. Yeah. So that's, in other words, it's of value. And now I will say that, if the roles were reversed and we were looking at some sort of conservative witness being hauled in by the Democrats for questioning, I'd be on the side of demanding a public hearing first. No deposition. And the reason for that is purely because I do not trust these Democrats. I just don't trust them in any format, quite honestly, Congressman. I wish I could. I don't, which is why I would demand public testimony. But here I'm perfectly content with Hunter Biden going in for a deposition first. And I don't think you can accuse me of any hypocrisy here because I'm making literally a moral judgment about these people. I think they're awful. But Congressman, will Hunter Biden appear for this behind closed doors deposition? What's your sense of this?
Well, I would say that's the 24 million and counting question, right? We have so many. I don't think he wants to, but the Democrats have also set a precedent where if you don't show up, you should go to jail. So he should go to the jug if he doesn't show up. There should be, if there's no teeth behind a subpoena, they will be ignored. And so that's the actions. If he doesn't want to come in and testify, then he should appear. Then he should face those consequences.
Right. And so, and now on this issue of a subpoena, you don't get a subpoena early in the process. Normally, it starts with, "Hey, would you come in and testify?" They don't respond. They don't want to do it voluntarily. But you realize that, look, this is a witness that has critical information. We have to bring them in. So then you send them a subpoena to compel them to come in. At that point, you don't get to choose the air conditioning and the drinks in the room, do you?
No. In fact, let's just talk again, because we do this on your show. We talk brass tacks. We talk well beyond honest, and we go into frankness, and we go into candor. We have all been accused of things. When you enter the political, minefields, if you won't enter the political arena, you are going to get accused of things, most of which are completely, if not everything, are just completely false. So when I'm accused of things, I'm eager to talk about it. I'll eagerly come in and say, no, that's not true, and here's my proof. Why don't the Bidens do that? They could have cleared this thing up years ago, but they never have. I'll give you a quick for instance. He was sitting there, he says, with his father when he was talking to his Chinese business associate, demanding payment of several $100,000, saying that his dad's wrathful. His dad can be angry. You don't want him you don't want his dad on your bad side. And he said, I'm sitting here right here with him. So was he lying to his business associate, or was he with his dad? I suspect he was truly with his father. So if he's saying that he was only kidding and he really wasn't with his dad and he was just saying it for emphasis, are you willing to give up your GPS, locator information? Because we are all tracked when we have cell phones now. If you voluntarily give up that right, let's find out where you were that day. And that were your dad.
Well, the answer,
there's no way you're going to do that.
I mean, the excuse here that Biden has basically tried to conjure is that his son is a con man. That's the explanation. My son's a con man. That's what he wants us to believe, which is crazy. So Hunter Biden, it's not crazy that he's a con man, but it's crazy that Joe Biden would basically throw his son under the bus and say, yeah, he was lying in that text message. I wasn't a part of that. But that's funny because Joe Biden was a part of everything, Congressman. I mean, how many witnesses do we need to tell us that Joe Biden was present at meetings that were essential to grease the business for the family before we realize, man, we've got a mountain of evidence before us?
I mean, Devin Archer, I remember being on your show, Vince, like last year before Archer came in, and we didn't know at the time that Hunter Biden would give the phone to his father and put his business associates on speaker. And they would talk directly to Joe, mind you, only after they made a big payment or payments to his son. That's selling access and influence. And in the case of Ukraine and Burisma, it couldn't be more clear-cut. The FD 1023 form perfectly corroborates the Archer testimony.
Yeah.
It makes perfect – everything always – the puzzle always fits together perfectly, and they want us to ignore that. They want us to ignore the fact that it makes sense that Joe Biden was paid $5 million and his son another $5 million, so $10 million plus the $3.5 million, like $13.5 million to help out Mykola Zlochevsky. They did help him out, by the way. They got the prosecutor off the case, and he got off scot-free.
That's what the FD 1023 form, which is this FBI informant saying, yeah, this was a bribery scheme where the Bidens were bribed in order to get a Ukrainian prosecutor fired. I've been thinking, though, Congressman, one of the excuses the left makes on that story is, well, that was U.S. policy at the time. That was U.S. policy at the time to get this Ukrainian prosecutor fired. And one, if it's like any thinking person, you would hear that assessment and go, okay, who made it U.S. policy? One, whose decision was it to begin? How much did the vice president's office have a hand in establishing what the quote U.S. policy was? Because if I remember correctly, Joe Biden's countries, his portfolio included Ukraine. So the White House, the vice president's office would have an extraordinary amount of influence over that question. And two, have you noticed that Barack Obama has never come out in public to make that claim? Have you noticed? Obama, who it was his presidency, you'd think he'd be defending Joe Biden. He's never come out and said, oh, it was our policy. We wanted to get the guy fired. Joe didn't do anything wrong. He never once says any of that, Congressman.
If that was the policy that they got the prosecutor fired, this is the same prosecutor that seized assets from Zlochevsky. He was after this guy. He took, I think it was 2 homes, a plot of land, and a Rolls Royce from the guy. He was on the case. And when he got fired, only after Joe Biden withheld $1 billion in loan guarantees to the Ukrainians, even the phone call when the Ukrainian president calls Joe Biden and says, you asked us to fire him, even though we don't think he's done anything wrong and he was good at his job.
Yes.
We fired him because you asked. So even they at the time were saying the guy hasn't done anything wrong, but because you asked, we did it. So why did he ask when it made no sense? Where are the predated accusations that this was policy? Where in fact were high-ranking American officials saying that this guy wasn't doing his job? That doesn't exist.
And finally, on this question in particular, obviously firing the corrupt prosecutor, which was U.S. policy at the time, that's what the left keeps telling us, resulted in Ukraine becoming a corruption-free place, right? What happened to Ukraine and corruption after that?
Yeah, it wasn't touched at all. In fact, it got worse. And when Zlochevsky, he had to skip town. I mean, he had to leave the country, but he never faced justice. And I think Joe Biden came through for him. So, he's got the evidence. He's got the proof. Another thing for your listeners, for them to understand, is that FD 1023 form that was generated by the human source, that's only as good as the human source. Problem for the Bidens and the Democrats are the FBI themselves says that human source has checked out everything he's ever told them. He's one of their best informants. They've worked with him for over 10 years, and they paid him hundreds of thousands of dollars. Everything he's ever given them is checked out. So that's a highly credible source.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's yet another piece of evidence ignored by the left and their media stooges on this particular massive story. Congressman Pat Fallon, again, with the Oversight Committee, we're always grateful to have you on the show. Thank you, sir.